Do the trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're cracked up to be? Here at Terrible Book Club, we explore whether you really can judge a book by its cover, or its ridiculous synopsis. You ever passed a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are.
And welcome to episode 167 of the Terrible Book Club. I'm Paris, and this is Chris.
Hello.
This time we read Waldo Beyond the Walls, Adventures in the Galaxy by Bill Shook, which was recommended by an anonymous fan who has apparently been a devoted listener to the podcast for 5 years. Well, thank you, anonymous friend. We very much appreciate your devotion. I'm sure Tereblo does as well. Our wonderful anonymous listener here recommended this book because Waldo Beyond the Walls read not like a draft, but someone's first pass at writing something. It was so utterly abysmal that it deconstructed my brain and put me off reading for a whole week. I ran the book by 4 family members, one of whom is a professionally published writer. Their opinions were in line with my own, and I'm sure yours will be as well. It has been optioned for a movie. I kind of forgot about that. These truths need to be expressed so that Waldo Beyond the Walls may be extinguished. Wow, this is... All right, we're on a mission.
Does he think we have that kind of power here?
Yeah, we don't. I don't think we have... Our bodies getting...
I think we have no power, actually.
No, throwing our bodies in front of, like, a movie option would be, like, little flies going by you while you're walking to work. Like, no effect.
Like desperate dramatic music while we're risking our lives and then just plastic.
Yes, correct. Bugs on a windshield. Wow, I'm sorry. I'm like sitting here going, wow, this was optioned for a movie. I don't know about that.
I mean, I don't wonder how they know that, but I can't believe that. I just don't believe
it. Could be a lie. I mean, like, the author could have just been like, oh yeah, my book's so good it got optioned for a movie, and his family's just like, oh, and like everyone he knows is like, oh, maybe, you know what, Chris, we can find out by going to the website waldowall.com. That's a real thing.
There's always a fucking website.
Hang on, no, I'm gonna go to the website. Go to the website. I'm off the rails. I'm off the wall. Already off the wall.
Beyond the Walls. By the way, can I just say before we start anything, there's not really like a beyond the walls here, right? Because no one's trapped in any of the walls in this book, so there's no beyond. You're just on one side of the wall or the other.
All right.
Right? Like, who's to say what's beyond on what side of the wall?
All right. I got news. I've got news.
There is no Waldo Wall.com?
No, there is, unfortunately. Right at the top in the upper left, it says the Waldo Metaverse TM.
Nah.
Wait.
Nah, I don't wanna.
Gets better.
I'd rather not.
I'm going to click on Metaverse and see what happens. The first multi-metaverse built for fan collaboration. Oh, no. There's also another link for NFTs. Oh, no.
Great.
Oh,
awesome.
You know, I saw a reference to NFTs in like the oh my God, the beginning of the book with credits and whatnot. I don't know why the name for that is escaping me at the moment. But I was like, I've already lost confidence in this book because it's trying to sell children NFTs. Let's just remember this is a book for small children.
Can I have more allowance so I can buy Waldo NFTs? What? You're grounded.
What person is trying to sell little kids NFTs? Like, what the fuck is happening in this world? Anyway,
you're grounded until you learn about financial responsibility.
Guess what? That non-fungible token, fucking fungible by mom and dad. Took away that URL. Anyway.
I'd rather you took up drugs.
Please, son, have a weed. Okay. So I guess our anonymous fan here heard about this and felt they had to raise the alarm. They raised the terrible book alarm.
Cool.
They placed this book on the altar of Cereblo, and we've accepted it. All right.
All right, what do we do here, Paris?
What do we do here? If this is your first time listening to this show, what we do here at the Terrible Book Club is we read and review books that we assume will be bad based on their cover, title, summary, or some combination of the three. Sometimes, like today, though, we read books that our patrons, listeners, or friends recommend. So we typically do the opposite of what most people do when they are in a bookstore or while they're browsing the internet and looking for something to read. Typically, this experiment results in a hilariously disappointing read, but once in a while, we do actually end up liking the book. For today, I guess you've already experienced our barnyard language. That's going to continue as it does into perpetuity. Other than that, I don't know. Today's mostly fine. It's a little kid's book, but we do have to get into 1990s levels of multiculturalism, quote unquote, and peace and hope, and some of that stuff I understand might rub you the wrong way. So if you don't want to hear about that, skip today.
Yeah, nothing rubs me the wrong way like peace and hope.
Well, the 1990s
You
brand
guys will see what we mean. You'll see what we mean.
Multiculturalism paired with peace and hope is specifically what we mean, and I think you all know what we're talking
Yeah, that kind
about.
of, everyone can just get along if they decide to, and you ignore a lot of things.
Yeah, everyone is the same. Anyway, so Chris, would you like to, I guess you could, actually, Chris, you could literally read the back of the book because you have it in your possession. We had to buy a hard copy of this.
I know. Unfortunately, there's literally nothing on the back of the book except a bunch of pictures of, I guess this is an NFT right here, but it's fungible because it's probably a lot of copies of this. So there's the Amazon summary, which
Chris,
is
there
here.
a lot of copies of this? Do you think there are?
I don't know. I don't know. But, well, there's more than one, and thus the token has been funged.
I guess we've been funged. All right, Chris, you want to get fungy and read the description here?
Here we go. This fantasy adventure about the reluctant hero Waldo is the creation of author, artist, and designer Bill Shook. The story weaves a unique blend of culture, humor, history, science, and fantasy. There is no one in the world quite like Waldo, a fellow who's a bit off the wall even when he's on it. Join Waldo and his collection of friends as they embark on adventures that will span the world, dive deep into history, consider the great beyond, and keep a smile on your face from beginning to end. Strange events force Waldo off the wall as he is contacted by his Uncle Victor and handed a clue to a family secret that is truly out of this world. They will get a glimpse of the other cultures and traditions in Europe, Asia, and North America, and discover magical treasures. They'll delve into some of the most pivotal moments in human history as they explore world-famous walls in Croatia, China, Zimbabwe, and Greece. By the time Waldo finally gets back to the wall, he'll have learned not only where he comes from and realize that this isn't the end of his story, but the beginning of an adventure spanning the entire galaxy. For more information regarding Waldo books, projects, NFTs, and music and licensing, https://waldo.com.
I don't think you quite...
I mispronounced that.
I don't think you quite got that.
I didn't really do that.
It's waldowall.com, in case you're curious. Speaking of which, first of all, thank you, Chris, for reading that. Secondly, I did click on the movie section of the website. Unless this hasn't been updated since this was recommended to us, I don't think this was optioned for a movie. The author made a trailer, and he's trying to get funding for it. There is a pitch deck for a movie, but optioned and you're hoping that it becomes a movie are two different things. I don't think.
Yes, someone out there has the option to perhaps make a movie.
A very unique interpretation of that word. Anyway, glad we got to a resolution there. All right, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and read the characters, setting, and the summary you wrote. How about that? Does that sound good to you?
Sure. Sounds great.
All right. Our characters and setting. So our setting is the planet Earth, various continents. Our characters, we got Waldo, just a young boy, unsure of age. His accidentally non-binary cat, Shadow, Mr. Eddie, his insufferable dog who went to Harvard because continues to be the only university anyone has ever heard of.
His dog. I think Mr. Eddie is just a dog that is out there.
His friend dog, whatever, it doesn't matter. But anyway, authors continue to only know one university, and that is Harvard, and that's it. There's no other options in any book. Waldo's several uncles and cousins appear, and they are often stationed at various walls that we visit throughout the book. There's evil pigmen, and one of the evil pigmen has just an evil dog called Dog. Just dog with a W in it. I don't fucking know. I'm
glad that we agree on that pronunciation, Paris. I was hoping I wouldn't come in here and you'd be like, it's Dwog.
I don't know. It could be Dwog. Is there... Did I forget? No, that's it, right? We don't... Yeah,
that's really... I mean, unless you want to get specific about the uncle names, which...
I don't.
Nah.
All right. I do not care to. All right. Well, this is a children's book, so it's a pretty short summary. We just want to give you kind of a holistic overview of the plot events and how things happen in the story so that when we're talking about things we liked and didn't like, you will have a general sense of what we are talking about. Waldo is a kid who lives on a wall. It's his wall. He likes sitting on it, watching people go by. One day, his Uncle Victor comes by, all coy about some adventure and mystery-solving Waldo must get up to for his family or something. He gives him a letter that he breathes on to reveal a map of the world and also fill his town with color? I guess it was monochrome before, but it took 28 pages for us to find that out, so I don't know. It's a map of famous walls around the world, and it opens a portal in Waldo's wall to another wall. Waldo and his cat pal Shadow go through the portal and find themselves in Berlin. Waldo's got another cousin in Berlin who also has a wall, the Berlin Wall. He gives Waldo a little riddle where the answer is hope, and when Waldo says it out loud, Berlin is filled with color. I guess it was also monochrome because it was sad or something because it's Germany? I don't know.
It's really just...
Waldo does this kind of thing twice more in China with another uncle and California with a cousin, where the answers to those riddles are peace and love, respectively. This whole time, Waldo is ineptly being pursued by the Pigman and Dwog, some kind of pig-human hybrid and just his shitty dog. Turns out that Pigman is part of an alien race that wants to harvest Waldium, a material from the Wall world, where Waldo is from. He is also an alien and he didn't know until now. So I guess Waldium's in the walls? It's just like a thing? I don't know. The Pigmen, of course, only have Pigmandium, and because it's a stupider name, they want the Waldium instead. Waldo has to harvest the Waldium gems from the secret compartments in all the walls, and he gets the Wallfinity Gauntlet that can banish the pigmen from Earth. Also, his dog named Mr. Eddie is around sometimes. The end.
Yep, there you have it, folks. It's a wall-based children's book.
You said that, and I can't keep it together. All right, Chris, you wanna start us out with some things that were good?
Okay, so this isn't necessarily in the notes up top over here, but I want to say that I sort of appreciate the idea of, like, hey, check out the historical significance of walls around the world. It's kind of a nice way to get kids to think about the objects have history, and there's a lot of interesting things you can know about them. That's about where it kind of stops for me in terms of like where that concept could go, because I don't think it's executed that well after that. But it's not a horrendous idea.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I haven't been I've been adult for a few years now, so like I don't know what's out there really for children's books, but I certainly don't remember like a children's book around walls before, so I was like, all right, sounds kind of
like without the wall
fine.
thing, just like the idea of letting kids know that objects have context.
Right, absolutely. And you know, I I personally had never heard of the Zimbabwe Walls or Harul Jugal, I'm not sure how to say that, before, and so I was like, oh, this is cool. I didn't know about these things. It would have been nice to actually learn about them and not just that they exist, but that's fine. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Speaking of walls, the other thing, this is where I embarrass myself in front of the world. I didn't know that Berlin was divided into 4. I thought it was only divided into 2 because I had only ever learned about East and West Germany and only ever heard people refer to it as like a dichotomy and not a quadcotomy. I don't know what the what the version of 4 is.
Quadcotomy, yeah, that's probably
I
it.
did not know that it was divided into 4, and I felt really dumb when I realized that.
I mean, I did know this, and the only reason I do know this is because I remember I just have this weird memory. One thing that my brain held on to from looking at maps in history textbooks in school, I just have this very clear memory of looking at one and seeing Berlin divided into 4 pieces, and there was like color coding of who owned what quadrant, and that's just this one fact and memory that has stuck in my brain from, history books in school. I think it was because, here's actually the reasoning, I used to have a lot of trouble reading maps in history classes in school because they'd always be color-coded.
Right.
So all the information on the maps was very difficult for me, a very colorblind person, to parse. But this one, it used a system that wasn't color-coding. It was like how it was hashed.
Oh,
or
this one was hatch marks
solid.
or shaded.
This one was... Yeah. So I think that's why it stuck out for me and why I knew this one fact, which is oddly relevant to this story where color is part of it. Is there some kind of like wall monochromatism thing that I haven't heard about? Like, why is there a connection?
Oh my God, Chris, you haven't gotten the letter from your Uncle Victor yet. That's why. All right.
Oh, it's been all this time. I don't have a wall though. Should I have been like? Is that?
I mean, you're near
inside Paris.
You're near a highway.
Is that why?
You're near a highway that was built through a historically black area, so I'd consider that a wall.
Cool. Great.
Yes,
I got the racist wall.
Chris, you're going to get on top of 93, and then one of your Polish uncles will drive by and throw a letter at your head, and he's going to blow on it, and then your color blindness will be fixed.
Oh, my God.
Figured it out.
It's all so simple.
Figured it out. All right, so... so I was like, wow, okay, this book taught me, 3 facts.
Yeah, you learned stuff,
yes.
Paris.
You,
an adult for many years now.
I know. The other couple of things that were on my things I enjoyed about this, specifically the illustration of Space Cat versus the pig, which I guess Space Cat was actually just supposed to be Shadow, who is not a space cat, but it looks like a space cat in the drawing. I thought that illustration was awesome. The other illustrations maybe not so much, but that one was fantastic.
There's artistic quality to some of these illustrations, I would say.
Yeah.
Waldo as a person has horrifying proportions.
Yeah.
But there's a style here.
Is there a style, Chris, or are there 8 styles? Because I just want to talk about things that were bad, things that were,
By the way,
good.
this is my favorite one that we'll discuss when we get to things that were bad.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's say it's got some illustrations that I think are good for a kid's book. They look professionally done, some of them. You know what, man? I like rocks and minerals. And you know what? I also find comfort in a nice stone wall or fortification. Feels stable. So I get it. I get that part of the book. The kids
So you appreciate that there's walls in here is really what it is?
I like a good stone wall or I like a good...
Okay.
I like a good...
you like what you like.
Crenellation, a good buttressed tower. It's...
Okay.
Makes you feel
I can
stable.
get behind that. Do you like them low and wide, or do you like them tall and thin? Is height more of a thing for you? Or is it
I feel like
thickness?
The classic New England borrowed from Europe, that low, thick stone wall. That's chef's kiss for me.
All right.
But anyway, I guess I understand starting a children's book with Waldo likes his wall because it makes him feel like grounded, even though that's not what they say. That's the sense I get. And I'm like, all right, if you're starting a children's book, I get it. The only other note I had for things that were good was there's a part where there's an enchilada hangover and it's like mildly funny. It didn't even make me laugh internally, but I just went,
It
okay.
comes out of the blue. It's just the chapter starts with like the 5th enchilada was the bad idea, it turns out.
And he's like, oh God, I can barely get by today because I'm in California and I've eaten too many enchiladas. And I was like, it's not that funny, but it's a kid's book. I'm like, all right, I can see a kid being like, haha, enchiladas. Can you feel the length of my reach and the strain in my arm? Yeah. All right, we are going to move into the things that were not so great section. As I already discussed, the page with like all the incidentals and credits mentioned NFTs, and the table of contents also had like spacing, spelling, and kerning problems. And let me tell you, I was reading this very late at night on Chris's couch, like trying to finish this before I go to bed. And I was having a hard time. I was not enjoying this. It was bad.
Like, how hard was your desire to like go upstairs to my bedroom and like slam your fist on the door and like swing it open and be like, Chris, the fucking kerning. I can't stand it.
It was very strong, but I decided at least one of us should, get sleep that evening. So, so my first note was I'm already off this goddamned wall because the first thing you open your book with sucks. Like, it just looks bad. Why? Why would you, also, like, speaking of openings, why would you open a children's book with a 2-page repetitive summary? Kids don't want to read the summary twice. Like, why does that happen? Just put a third of this on the back of your book. There, it's fixed. Also, the summary is repeated on the final page. There's some repeated illustrations too, which is like, it's got like Maradonianism.
Got a bad case of that Maradonianism.
Yeah, I mean this.
Sorry, sir. Unfortunately, you've come down with a terrible case of Maradonianism. We're gonna have you poisoned and just suddenly die.
I'm sorry, sir. You're gonna have to go to our writing boot camp for a full year. Yeah, I just like this felt very carelessly thrown together, and I was about to write, this might be the most carelessly thrown together thing we've read on the show since last time, because I kind of forgot that the last episode that aired was Splattering Yet Endearing, which is our new champion, our new reigning champion. So, it's not...
I'd rather read Waldo 5 times.
I think I would rather have it tattooed on my body than go back to splattering.
That's an option for me. I could add to this.
That's true. But yeah, so I think the reason that these things were so off-putting to me is because the author is spoken about in the sort of the back of the book as like author, artist, designer, Bill Shook. Like, we're supposed to know who he is, like he's established. I'm assuming that's just a trick and he's not. But when you like talk up the creator of the book and then the first thing you experience is really unprofessional and disorganized formatting, it's just like, all right, it makes you question that. Of course, children probably aren't thinking that, but if you're a parent looking at this, you're like...
Some 5-year-old child that got a copy of this and also ran into their parents' bedroom like, the kerning!
I hope so. I hope that kid exists.
You bought me this shit book with this bad kerning? Fuck you, Mom.
Chris, could you do me a paper?
Yeah, I can do a favor.
Chris, could you do me a favor and turn to page 5 and read that for me?
Minerals are a marvelous thing. They come from within. It doesn't have to be created artificially. Nature creates. It is innovative and dazzling and speaks of a higher force at work behind its own beauty. Nature creates minerals everywhere in the universe. Beings take those minerals and forge tools, crafts, essentials, instruments of war, and objects of wonder. Time, heat, pressure, that's all you really need to forge minerals. A combination of the 3 makes magic happen. Gold, silver, bronze, copper, diamonds and rubies, emeralds and sapphires, amethysts and topaz. All of them are naturally made, not a single hand involved in the process. They can be buried for millennia or bubble to the surface unexpectedly. They can be beautiful or terrible, peaceful or raging. They can bring beauty and light or symbolize death and destruction. Above all, they are gifts for good or ill, and certainly not to be trifled with.
All right. Keep all that in your mind, folks. I got 2 questions. 1, does this man not know that lab-created gems are a thing? 2, did you not hear Jordan Peterson reading that entire segment? Because that's who was narrating it in my head. Because it just sounds...
Up yours, woke Twitter. Minerals are the greatest.
Your lab-created minerals are woke propaganda. Only real minerals from the earth. Harvested by a child. Like, I just... For some reason, there's something about that. I think because he's like, nature, and only nature can make these. It's like, bro, have you, like, we also make many of them in
It
labs.
really sets off a lot of alarm bells to me whenever I hear someone start going off about, like, the natural thing, the thing that nature intended. It's, like, never great. It's never great.
Yeah, when your children's book is reminding me of Jordan Peterson, you have already lost. Okay, Chris, you want to... Sorry, this is just a...
I had a question. Notes. I have a question about... Okay, so Waldo's from the planet Wall or whatever.
Waldia? Or is it planet Wall? No, Wall? Yeah, I guess it's Wall.
It's not really named. It's not named. So guess what? It's planet Wall now. Anyway, so all the uncles and cousins are really members of the race, but they call them uncles and cousins. But there's a single Wall cousin, actually a couple that. But like, how does that? Is that just like when you call people that are family friends uncles and cousins, but that's like alien species wide thing that they do, or is everyone actually a little bit related? And there's
which implies some horrible things about Planet Wall.
Yeah. I mean, if there's not a lot of you, there's going to be a little inbreeding until like it really pops off, right? Like you can't really, if there's only 40 of you.
Well, but here's
I guess we really all are uncles and cousins. Okay, but we don't know how many there are.
But here's the thing, and I'm not trying to like sound like Jordan Peterson here, but something we should note.
The natural thing to do is to marry your Wall cousin.
Wall cousins are only produced on organic wall farms. You can't make a Wall cousin in a lab. You cuck. Anyway. Sorry, I'm trying. If you're saying that you're aliens from a different planet, why are you like the ethnicities of humans on Earth? Is this a disguise? It doesn't seem like that. I don't get it. Like, why is there no difference?
Why are the phenotypes the same in a planet like across the galaxy?
Thank you for saying that in a much more eloquent and simple way that did not sound terrible. Yeah, I don't quite get that. It just doesn't come off as very creative. You're just like, oh yeah, that person over there's an alien. You're like, wait, how? They're like, I don't know, they're just from another planet. It's like, but what? You said this book was going to teach us about science.
The pigmen are different. Like, yeah. Also, the town that Waldo is from just lets the pigman be that he's an asshole and like totally not human. Not to say that we should get rid of people that don't look totally human, but if you're like a giant asshole that does nothing but antagonize everyone, at least throw him in jail. Like, it's not even for any reason that he looks weird. He's just actually breaking the law.
Yeah, he and his dog just like, don't they like piss all over stuff? Isn't like that their thing? Yeah. Like public urination just for no reason, just to suck, just to be jerks.
At least book them, dude. Like, what?
Yeah. And not like a public urination, like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom, like a vicious public urination, like peeing on people's things.
Urination.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It just was like, it's a kid's book. Get creative.
The lore is thin and flavorless.
What lore, Chris? What lore? So I mentioned I had a little outburst when I was reading the summary because I was like, I can't believe it took 28 pages in this like 100-page kids book for us to find out that the main character lives in a world without color, because all of the illustrations are in color. So you don't know. I mean, I've read books like this before where you start off and the illustrations are black and white, and then something happens to cause the world to have color, and then the illustrations are in color. Therefore, they're.
This actually seems like a massive oversight. Actually, now that you're mentioning it, I didn't think of that.
I mean,
probably because of the colorblindness thing, but like that does seem like a really obvious thing that you could do to key people into what's going on.
Right, so like it doesn't necessarily have to be in the text. Like Waldo lives in a black and white world. It could have just illustrations could have been black and white. And that would have been fine, but it just kind of appears as a total surprise, and I also don't understand the point. I think he's trying to say that, like, oh, when you discover it's supposed to be a metaphor for when children discover there are other places to go, and history is vast, and other people that are different from them exist and have, like, lives of their own. It really opens up your world and, like, colors your world, but I had to really think about that for like a few minutes, so I don't know that children will pick up on the connection. Like, exploring...
You know how you could have done that? Here's how you could have done that. When the wall opens with the wall portal, that's where the color comes spilling from, not just the letter in his hand.
Well, yeah, and also, if it had come spilling, like, different colors from each wall until he finally had the whole rainbow, the visible spectrum... that would have served the message, right? It would have been like, oh, I get it. Only when I've considered all people and all places, like, can I really see the rich palette of history and humanity before me? But we didn't do that. We didn't even...
Chris, we should write a fucking wall book. Let's do this.
Yeah, Chris, you and I are going to get in on this wall business. We just thought... I want everyone to know these things are not in our notes. We just came up with that. So the fact
this is off the dome here.
The fact that this stuff was published and probably saw many people before and after, and nobody was like, hey, man, maybe, like, think a little harder. It's a kid's book, but, like, you still gotta try. A little layering here. We don't know. So that sucked. Editing note, there was Shadow the cat. I was jokingly referring to Shadow as accidentally non-binary because the cat is. Shadow is referred to as she, and then she is suddenly he, and then she again, and then he a few more times, and it didn't seem intentional. It just seemed careless, right? Like, it would be one thing if they're like... Yeah. Shadow the cat can be referred to by any pronouns, but that's not what happened here. This is just bad editing, So yeah. That was annoying. Like, it's a children's book that's 100 fake children's book pages. Like, we're not talking real pages here. You know what I mean? You all, I presume, have seen a children's book. So the fact that you've got, like, typo, grammar, spelling stuff going on is just inexcusable. Moving on. So, all right. This book is supposed to teach kids about history and science. Where is the science? What is that one weird fucking Jordan Peterson jerk-off session about, like, minerals coming from the natural earth and nowhere else? Is that the science?
Yeah, natural minerals like waldium and pygmandium is what the kids will learn about here.
Yes. And then they don't really learn any history. The only thing they learn is that Berlin was divided into 4 after World War II, and that walls exist with historical context that you don't receive in other places. So, like, all you're learning is that, wow, humanity really likes a wall. I don't know why.
In the Great Wall of China part, he talked about how merchants could get in and out depending on certain conditions. So, like, you get a little bit. There's like one wall fact per wall,
which is not enough. It's not enough.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess you could throw in like 2 or 3 to give kids more credit than that. Although, as someone that works with children, sometimes just the one thing is fine. That's what they can handle sometimes.
Well, but with the walls in Africa, we only got the fact that they existed. We did.
True. Yes. So you really don't get anything.
I just feel like if you're gonna put a book together that's supposed to be teaching something, you gotta put the things in there to teach, right? Like, don't tell me it's gonna teach kids history and science if it isn't. I mean, I guess there is that one passage about minerals, which sort of, but I wouldn't consider that. You literally just put a page in about minerals. It's not worked into the story. Like, if the creation of the minerals and how they're made was worked into the story, a kid might remember it. But a kid isn't going to remember this weird YouTube rant about the glory of minerals. Like, and that's
no, they're going to remember that that near every wall there's a secret gem.
Yes.
That's what a kid will hook on
Yes.
to.
There, exactly. Or like, oh no, there's evil pigmen. You know, like that's what they're gonna remember. So there wasn't a good weaving of these things together, which is the biggest problem here. But there's also a lot of factual problems. So we already brought up how this author apparently doesn't know that lab-created gems exist. I mean, obviously it's not everything, but it's many.
I think he's just a denier that they count.
He's a gem denier.
Yeah. It feels like that to me.
All right, there's just a series of things I took issue with, so let me just go there. There's a passage where he says that someone, I think they're talking to like the dog that went to Harvard, and
yeah, Mr. Eddie, who went to Harvard and Yale.
Oh, right. Sorry, those are the only two colleges anyone knows, or universities anyone knows about. College universities. The dog is like, oh, there's this other dog. She's really cool. She's a golden retriever in the U.S. and she found 1,000-year-old Viking dishes. And I was like, my little like anthropology antennae were like, like tingling. I was like, that's not. I don't want to say it's not possible, but it's like 99.99% not possible. It's like. Because
the dog, to be clear, the dog didn't use archaeology tools. It just used its paws, which would break the old dishes, I'm going to say. Oh,
yes, that is a good point. My point was that North American Viking settlements are unproven with the exception of one place in Newfoundland, which I will not pronounce correctly despite having a French name. I can't pronounce French. It's Meadow or whatever. I don't know, the fucking meadow place. That place. That is the only place in North America where there's been verified archaeological evidence of Viking settlement at any time. It was a short-lived settlement as far as we know. So Newfoundland, as you may know, is in Canada. It is in North America. It is not America. It's not the United States. So I just like, okay, here's the reason why I find this irresponsible to include in a children's book. There's been a lot of let's just say it, white supremacist myth making about how Vikings settled America, though. Like, oh, it was the Vikings. And strangely, this has been really concentrated in New England. And there are a couple of landmarks that still exist in Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts that are like, oh yeah, this is Viking stuff. None of it is. It's all been disproven, and that shit still persists. So like, to plant this idea in a children's book is just not responsible as an adult. Like, yes, we have the one settlement in Newfoundland, but there has been more attention to this, than a lot of other things, and nothing's been found. Nothing has been established, and so I just don't. Again, it's like the lack of thought put into this. It fucking kills me. It's like, oh, we're gonna teach him science and history, and then just shit out these like half true or false things in this book. Why?
I guess what you're saying is that certainly it is plausible that there were Vikings around, but it is not proven fact that we should operate from.
Even plausible, like, it's distantly plausible. Maybe. Yes. Like, deeply maybe. Like, you are reaching the edges of the maybe galaxy and butting up onto the Milky Way or whatever. I don't know anything about space. But like, you know what I mean? Like, technically, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it is not very likely.
And most people operate as if it's the whole truth.
Right. I mean, there's a Leif Erikson statue in Boston. there's a tower in Waltham. There's like some fucking rocks in New Hampshire that are a hoax. There's shit in Maine. People are like, oh, this tower is Viking. No, it was colonial. Like, anyway, you can look, you have the internet. You're listening to this on the internet. I don't need to talk about this anymore. It's just something that really...
Yeah, let's move on.
A little fucking thorn in my little paw. Oh, God. There's also a reference that Boston is not in Massachusetts, like a sentence after. So I think that
this is a very confusingly edited passage. So this was the dog that went to both Yale and Harvard, and I think what happened was it was supposed to be at the beginning of the paragraph that they went to Yale, which is not in Massachusetts. I actually don't know where Yale is.
It's in Connecticut.
Okay, so yeah, so it reads like it was supposed to go like the dog went to Yale first, and then they got accepted to Harvard and Boston. But the paragraph starts with like they were in Harvard, and then they went. It says they were in Yale, in Boston, and then they went to Boston again. So it's like a double.
No,
error
it
there,
says they went. Chris, can you just pull up the page?
What page is this even?
I'm gonna have to guess. It's between 5 and 57. No, it's between 28 and 57. So it's probably if you just flip, you'll probably see Boston or Viking.
Okay, here's the sentence. This is one. It's not even a paragraph. It's just one sentence. But even he hadn't been as impressive of a student as Mr. Eddy, who had learned art and philosophy at Harvard, graduated in 3 years, then realized he still had so much to learn that he detoured out of Boston and headed straight to Massachusetts to enroll in Harvard later that day.
What happened? How did he get confused three times in one sentence?
He left Harvard to go out of Boston into Massachusetts, where he enrolled in Harvard, which is different according to the structure of this sentence.
Y'all, Harvard is in Cambridge, which is on the same transit network as Boston, part of the greater MBTA landscape. You may remember this from, I actually forget if it's the episode before this or it was 2 episodes ago, when we were doing the super cyborg super soldier thing. But they're both in Massachusetts. People often refer to Cambridge, to Harvard as being in Boston, because, I mean, it's like roughly the same.
In the sentence, he's like, he left Harvard to go to Harvard.
Yeah.
Like, aside from any geographical fuck-ups,
man.
The sentence says, I left Harvard so I could attend Harvard, which...
And he left Boston to go to Massachusetts. I mean, okay, the only...
Something happens there.
Wait, there is a year where this is possible. Hang on 1 second.
Excuse me?
Hang on.
There was a year that Boston was outside of Massachusetts, I guess, colonial, right?
There was a year. There was a period, there was a longer period of time than a year, but there was a period of time where you could go to Harvard, go to Boston, and then leave Boston to go to Massachusetts. And that was when Massachusetts was separated in 2, when Maine used to be Massachusetts. So if it was before the year 1819, technically.
I don't think that's it, because Mr. Eddy doesn't seem that old.
I mean, he's a fucking talking dog that can go to college. Let's just say he's like 400. It's fine. So, all right. So before 1819, you could leave Massachusetts and go to Massachusetts because Maine used to be Massachusetts. So...
But it was still both... There was, at the time, that was still both Massachusetts because there wasn't a Maine. You're just saying that the area that is Maine now...
Yeah, I'm saying...
was also Massachusetts back then. So you weren't leaving Massachusetts at the time.
Yes, you were. Because you'd have to go through New Hampshire and Vermont.
Oh, so there's like a wraparound situation.
Wait, was New Hampshire... Yeah, I think New Hampshire and Vermont were incorporated before Maine. Now I need to find this out.
Massachusetts was a non-contiguous colony?
Yes, this also... I don't know, I learned this a while ago. Hang on. This is like New England history with terrible book
We
club.
can't get this in the weeds, man. This was supposed to be a short episode.
I got so distracted when I was typing my Google search. I just searched for what years were New Hampshire and Vermont.
Yeah, what years were they?
We are off the walls.
When did New Hampshire and Vermont?
Vermont was... The Constitution was... 1777, and then New Hampshire, 1774. So yeah, so you would have to go through New Hampshire and Vermont to get to other Massachusetts. Massachusetts 2. Super Massachusetts.
Okay.
Which is now Maine. All right.
Massachusetts?
Massachusetts? Oh, God, the lost opportunity.
It's right there.
Anyway,
okay.
I
Let's
hope
move on
you
from
all
this
learned.
because that was clearly just a stupid
I
editing
hope
error.
you all learned a real historical fact today. So I guess.
More facts than in the book.
All right, let's start. This is like a total dive. This is just stream of consciousness note taking because this book made no sense. So, all right, next one. My next note. So, here's the other thing. I was like, all right. So I think I figured out why the walls were related to color magic, but I was like, wait, is he also connecting it to like minerals? I don't know. There's no real like why do the walls have to have gems in them? Why are gems brought into this discussion at all if it's about walls?
It's the simplest thing for magic, for like source of magical power. I mean, we've all played Sonic the Hedgehog before, so it's
we've all played,
one step over from there for
played
kids.
A Zelda. You've played an Elden Ring. You've played a Dark Soul.
Yeah, magical gems are just, the way to, like, if you just need to have a magical object, it's a gem. Like, that's the basic magical object.
Why couldn't it just be like could it be anything? Like, maybe they really wanted to take all the wall materials because Pygmandia or whatever doesn't have walls, and they're jealous of Planet Wall because they got walls. Like,
they never figured out how to put one stone on top of
yeah,
another.
they haven't figured it out. I mean,
and they'll kill you for it. They won't just look at it and go, "Oh, I could do that."
Or maybe they want to steal the mortar, like the stuff that holds those stones together, because they don't have it on their planet. Like, the extra layer of the gems. I don't understand.
It's a way so Waldo can defeat the pigmen. He needs the magic powers to defeat the pig. That's all it is.
Yeah. So remember,
like, once again, thin conflict with the thinnest possible basics of a book.
Yeah, all right, here's another thing. Remember earlier we were like, oh, warning, we're going to talk about some, like, 90s level of, like, multiculturalism, hope, peace, and love. We're all the same stuff. So part of that is that every person that Waldo meets is a fucking caricature. And, like, look, man, I get it. It's a book for small children. Like, this book really seems like it's for what? What are we talking? Like, first grade? Something like that? You know a child, Chris. What do you think? You teach your children. What is this?
I mean, I'm no English teacher or language arts teacher, I should say. But I would, somewhere in the 1st to 3rd grade area.
Okay, so
probably like 2nd or 3rd.
Oh, okay. I was thinking kindergarten or 1st, but maybe I'm off.
No, kindergartners would not be able to have the attention span to read this.
In any case, so, okay, I get that it's for children and you need to sort of simplify things, and sometimes when we simplify things, it can seem a little, off, right? Like, you don't want to simplify something so much that people from different cultures who are different ethnicities are represented in a very stereotypical or caricature-ish way, and that's unfortunately what happens here. Like, even the German guy is dressed in fucking, like, lederhosen and, like, a hat with a feather, and it's not Oktoberfest. Like, it's not Berlin during Oktoberfest, so why are we doing this?
Yeah, either it's 1819 where Massachusetts is split in two, where they probably also weren't doing lederhosen that
it's
often.
the Berlin Wall, so
or,
it's the 70s or something, right? Like, before 89, right? Is that's the year when it came down? Is that right?
89, because I was born then. That's the only one historical fact I remember about my birth year.
So, like, okay, and then we go to China, and I mean, I guess the curious thing about that is that the Chinese cousin is, like, doing yoga, which I wasn't really sure why that was included. Like, that was just confusing. I'm trying to remember if anybody else was in, like, a weird costume. Maybe not.
I mean, there's, like, the African cousin who is just sort of he's from Zimbabwe, right? But then in that part of the book, he mentions the African coast, and the coast goes around.
Yo, Africa's got all the coasts. You gotta be Which one? It's got all 4. It's got all of them. It's got a north, an east, a west, and a south. Like, most people, when they're talking about Africa, typically do refer to, like, the west coast. But if you say the African coast, my man, which one? Like, that doesn't... Also, Africa's fucking huge. I know that a lot of us white folks were taught with incorrect maps that used the wrong type of scaling. And so a lot of people think Africa is small. It's not. It's fucking big. So, like, if you're on any of those coasts, you're not necessarily near anybody else on a coast, right? Like, it's not like
okay, so he's in Zimbabwe, right?
Yes.
Zimbabwe is landlocked.
Yes, that's another thing that's confusing.
I'm looking at a map right now of where Zimbabwe
is.
is.
To write that down. Thank you.
I mean, I didn't know. Like, I didn't know, so I looked it up, but which is what you could have done before you wrote this book. But it looks pretty landlocked in this picture to me.
It is. I mean, it has like, I think it has maybe some smaller bodies like lakes or something, but it doesn't. It is in the thinner part of Africa, in southern Africa.
It's close.
But, like...
It's close to, like, the easty coast.
I mean, it's got a whole other nation, though, between it and the coast.
Yeah.
And we're not talking, like Monaco. We're talking Mozambique, which is like a real country. Sorry, Monaco, fuck off. You're like 2 miles long. Get out of here.
Jesus Christ.
Have you seen Monaco on a map, Chris?
I'm actually looking at the map right now, and yes, I mean, you aren't kidding, but
yeah. So I don't even remember, why does he talk about the African coast if they weren't on the coast? Do you remember? Do they need to go to the coast for some reason?
No, they're just talking about, like, again, it's very generic Africa.
Yeah, that's the kind of shit that, like, why are we doing this? It's 2023.
You didn't do that for Europe. It wasn't like I'm on the European coast over here in Berlin. Like,
well, I mean, Berlin isn't near the coast either.
It's not.
But I mean, it's closer than.
Once again, it's landlocked.
It's
but if you're talking about in Zimbabwe,
it's closer than a lot of Germany. But it's yeah. So yeah, right. You wouldn't be like, oh, I vacationed on the European coast or the American coast. I mean, no matter which way you say it, it's fucking dumb.
California would count for that, and it was not brought up.
That's true. Oh. I forgot about the weirdest wall of all, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So all the walls, like, okay, the Berlin Wall, obviously very, like, sort of top of mind Euro history for those of us in the Western world and any nation that was involved in World War II, which is, by its namesake, many of them. The Berlin Wall is like, a historical fact. It's relevant sort of to people of this time. The other walls we talk about, like the Great Wall of China, obviously, like, forever. The Wall, very cool. I mean, well, I guess if there were walls in they'd be the Wall, but you know what I mean. It's because the Great Wall of China is like the wall people think about. You can see it from space, etc., etc. The walls he mentioned in Zimbabwe, and actually I don't remember where the other one was because, again, we received no context and no consideration for the walls in Africa. Those we just get like a footnote, like, hey, these exist. The California wall was, to me, just like, Chris, when you read about that wall, were you like, what the fuck is this? Because that's how I felt. I was like, why are we including this? This isn't a historical wall. Like, I don't understand.
A wall doesn't have to have massive historical ramifications to be relevant to wall stories. I think that was. I'm going to go to bat for Bill Shook on this one. You don't have to have massive historical significance to be, an object of history, right?
You're right.
So, like, there are things that have a smaller impact in local cultures that are still relevant.
Okay, fine. You're right. I'm wrong. I'm wrong.
I wasn't trying to, like, fight you on this, Paris. I'm just saying that, like, for this one thing, I definitely did have the reaction of, like, wait, the fucking bubblegum wall? Why do we care about it? It's a cute little couple bubblegum wall.
Specifically the bubblegum alley of San Luis Obispo, which I've never heard of. I mean, I know the city. I just never heard of this wall. I think I just don't like the fact that there's just walls of old saliva that people touch. I don't like that.
That's really what your beef is.
But you're right.
So
You're right.
I'm gonna commend that there, it can have just like a local fun thing that perhaps a bunch of couples have met, and for some people there it's gonna have that significance to them. And looking up at the bubblegum wall, and it's disgusting because it's covered in old bubblegum, but like, oh, all those little disgusting pieces have a little tiny story in them.
You're right, Chris. You're absolutely right. I will take the L on this one. I was very wrong. Something that I think is gross and horrible can still be significant and historical. And you're right. I actually think that
and historical can be small. Can be small history.
The anthropologist inside of me is beating me mercilessly right now, just so you know.
I'll take your anthropology degree now, Paris. It's mine now.
Like write your name on it.
That's how that works.
Case, you're right. I guess the reason I was protesting was it felt like all the other nations in the world had these really significant walls, and then America's wall was just like fucking gum wall. Like, I wish that there was I wish he had chosen something with like a little more import, since the rest of them seemed like very important. I mean, I guess the ones in Zimbabwe, and I forget where the other one was. Ethiopia. Okay.
There was one in Greece. There was also one in Greece that they went to for like a minute to grab a gem. There was like a really quick, like, here, we got the gem. Bye. See ya.
Chris, can you? Chris, I have a question for you. Who's
Sure.
the blonde kid with the gun?
I don't remember what the fuck you're talking about, to be honest with you. Are you sure you didn't hallucinate something?
There's an illustration with like a blonde kid with a gun, and I'm like, who is that? It's not the main character. Main character's
okay.
black hair. It's not any of his friends. None of.
Listen, man.
What?
There's a lot of illustrations in here where there's just like an extra person or like being, and I'm like, I don't understand who that's supposed to be. Also, Shadow the Cat is represented in at least 3 or 4 different ways. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. You're talking about this one right here. I'm showing it to you over the webcam.
Oh, wow. I cannot see that, but I trust that you have found the correct one.
Yeah, it's like there's a small person with like a head wrap and an AK-47 shooting at like pig aliens.
Yes, and my question...
Or bigger than like the pig alien. There's also like these skull creatures. I guess they're supposed to be like mini dwarves. I don't know what the hell that is.
It's incoherent. And so it's like kids are going to focus on illustrations in books. So if there's like all this shit that you didn't talk about, I don't know. Again, it's just another like element of weird inconsistency and lack of forethought about the whole. And I know we've been talking for a while, but do you remember, dear listener, that this book's title was Waldo Beyond the Walls with the subtitle Adventures in the Galaxy? You may be wondering, when did you go to the galaxy? And the answer is just that I guess Earth is in this galaxy, so fuck you. We don't go to space in this book. We just say we go to space.
Well, they do. They do, but it's at the end of the chapter, one of Waldo's like wall uncle cousins, Kunkles, comes down and is like, I'm off to take you to see other walls in the galaxy. And the chapter ends with them shooting off into space, and then the next chapter opens with him dropping Waldo off back on Earth. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought I was going to go into space over here. What happened?
Yeah, so bait and switch. You think you're going to space, you see characters with space helmets on, like that really great illustration at the beginning with the cat fighting the pig. The cat, I believe, Chris, maybe double check. I think she has a like a space helmet, or there's at least several illustrations with space helmets. So you're like, oh man, Waldo's an alien. We're gonna go to space and like learn about his alien world. No, they're just gonna be like, and then Poochie went to his home planet, and that's it. Like,
yeah, I don't think there is actually. I'm not seeing any.
Okay, I thought there were several characters that had space helmets. I mean, I think there's the.
They're in like UFO, but they're in like the generic UFO that's just like a glass dome in a flat part, which is like the worst thing. I mean, the cat's outfit here is sort of spacesuit-esque in a way, but
that must be what I was thinking of. Anyway.
Yes.
Chris, I've got a few more questions for you.
Sure.
If each wall is managed by, owned by, controlled by a member of Waldo's family, you know, his wall uncles and wall cousins. Why does Waldo need to go to each one and solve a riddle and, like, go through, like, traps and whatever to get the gems to save everyone from the pigmen? Why wouldn't his cousin uncles just give him the gems? Why would they make him do that? What is the point? If your civilization is under attack, why would you be like, oh, haha, you gotta answer a riddle before you can get those nuclear codes, or like whatever? Obviously, that's an extreme example, but like, like, oh yeah, I have this thing that can help you defeat the enemy, but sorry, you gotta answer this like Tootsie Pop riddle first. Like, why? What is the purpose of this? Why do I need to go through a series of exercises and tricks and like why?
It's very unclear. It's very, sometimes there just isn't a wall person there, or like the wall person is like, I don't know where the gem is. Like, you got to figure it out.
Why don't you know where the gem is? You're the keeper of this fucking wall. Is that your whole job? These people, their whole job is being chained to this wall. Why wouldn't they know? Why wouldn't they help? I do not understand the logic here.
It's like, why is Waldo the one that is, you know, the one that has to do all the stuff when there's a lot of you? It seems like if this was a team effort, that would be very helpful. And why are you putting it on Waldo, the least experienced of the wall guardians?
Well,
with perhaps the least historically relevant wall.
Yeah, we don't get any information about his wall. Chris, speaking of these walls, what are the implications of being chained to a wall for your entire fucking life? Not physically, but
they gotta eat. These people gotta eat. They're eating all the time and everything. I mean they can. Cousin Ava can go to like a restaurant near the wall. So I wonder if there's like a radius or something.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, that sounds terrible. How do you get vacation time? Like, because you can't have somebody else watch your wall, because then they'll be gone from their wall. Is this just a pyramid scheme? Oh my god, a pyramid! Wait, is a pyramid a wall?
The NFTs are right there.
They're
right there.
Holy shit! So.
Listen, if I can convince you to buy my wall NFT, I can get the fuck out of here. So that's really what Waldo's the victim of. Everyone's like, yeah, Waldo, you gotta get the gems. You just gotta sign here that you're the owner of the wall gem.
Oh. All right. This was painful. Chris, do you have anything else? Sorry, a lot of these notes were mine today. Do you have anything to add to today's discussion?
No. I feel like we've said what we'd like to say about this wall book for kids. So
I mean,
can we fix
I hated it violently and it took sleep from me. I'm sorry. Could you should go first.
Okay. Like I said before, I kind of like the idea of teaching kids that history can be found in boring objects like a wall. But the whole where he has to solve the riddles with the answer is like, oh, this wall keeps peace in, and this wall made hope a thing when they broke the wall down. So I guess that's a bad wall. And then the love wall with the bubblegum thing, it just feels really corny to me as a way to like teach. I mean, that is part of history, right? Is like learning that it has this context, but it's just so hokey. And like the pigmen being the evil aliens, why not swap it with some animal that is a better wall breacher or like anti-wall?
That's a great point.
Some kind of insect with wall-crushing mandibles, or like a rhino. I don't know, like, you know, something that wants to go through a wall. An anti-beaver.
Chris,
I don't know.
Why wouldn't the enemy be like tree roots? Those are the things that destroy walls over time.
Yeah.
Or
erosion.
You're right. Or erosion, like the ocean. I mean, it could have been anything that, would have like a problem with a wall, you know. But a pig guy? Why does the pig alien not like? Why does Waldo have to be an alien?
Pigs are really common, like alien creatures that are evil. I've seen them in like 2 or 3 different kinds of media where it's like pig aliens for some reason. So I don't know, like it's just because the pigs are usually thrown in their bad pile of animals, which is really unfair to the pigs, I gotta say. That's about it for me on Can't Be. I mean, like, just put a little more thought into it. The core idea isn't terrible, but you could do more with it, I think.
Yeah, my feeling is that you just got to redo this whole thing. Get an editor. History shouldn't just be the free bread roll you get at your table. It should be the entree. That history and science, those should be your components of the meal, especially if you are professing that at the beginning and then you do not work it into your story appropriately. Get your shit right. Get your facts correct, my dude. You had some weird problems in here due to like editing and just not looking at a map for a hot second. Like, I mean, just the you gotta clear a pretty low bar here to make sure your facts are straight in this kid's book. It's not difficult. Yeah, and I agree with you, Chris. I do like the wall idea and your explanation of history through ordinary objects and not just extraordinary ones. That's actually a great point. But I do hate the main storyline. The whole like evil pigmen and the like, why we gotta have the gems? It was like the gems are only there so he could say there was science because he wrote a weird paragraph worshiping the creation of gems. Which I still will never get over. Yeah, like I said, I just really think this whole thing needs a redo. Stick with your wall idea or some other more ordinary object that you can attach history to and teach kids about. I think that's great, but everything surrounding it is those walls are really just keeping the muck out. Like it's bad out there beyond the walls. It's bad. This book made me violently angry and stole sleep from me. I actually could not sleep after I finished this book and took my notes, and it was like 1:30 in the morning, and I just could not
You were just
sleep.
stewing down there on the couch, just simmering with the current.
Yeah, I was
fucking kerning.
I was simmering, and I was boiling. It was bad. There was a lot there.
All right. Thank you, that person that suggested this to us. And also, thank you to our patrons. Craig, Veronica, Will, Dee, Jared, Aran, Senia, Jakob, Lycoris, Elliot, Kieran, Martin, Jay, Luchek, Miri, Yanka, David, Julius, Anya, Patricia, Austin, Donnie, Beast with the Least, Scott H, Robin, Black Stoties, Of the Void, The Taco Eating Unicorn, Last Man on Earth 01, Funny Robot with Antennas, Hobbyboy 93, Harry, Mason, Renee, Emmy, The Ugly One, Bleached Black Cat, Julius the Nice Dragon, Eastern Swiss, our Ko-fi donor Kiwi Think, and our newest patron, Rudy Bobooty. Hey, thank you for joining us up on this book wall. It's getting taller all the time. We're just stacking these books up until no one can see us back here.
Yeah, I actually forgot that we have a Julius and a Julius, the Nice Dragon. We have two. And
we seem to attract
Rudy
them.
Bobooty just makes me want a root beer. I don't know.
I'm not a fan of root beer, so you can have it.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Just some root beer hate to end this episode, I guess.
Yeah, I'm Team Lemonade. You know that.
Well, lemonade isn't carbonated. It's not a soft drink. That's not a fair comparison.
It can be. Well, it's in the sugary, non-alcoholic drink category, so it's...
Chris, do we need the sandwich website for drinks? Because, I disagree. I feel like you can compare root beer to a Dr. Pepper, to a Coca-Cola, to a brown pop, the differing brown pops. I think, perhaps you can move into, Sprite territory for clear pops, but this comparison of root beer and lemonade is it's inaccurate.
I feel, but they're kind of in the same area. You'd find them on the menu in a restaurant underneath the soft drink area, anyways. So,
doesn't soft drink imply that it's carbonated?
No.
Yeah. Hang on. Please hold.
Soft drink definition is how we're going to end this. A non-alcoholic drink, especially one that is carbonated, but not necessarily one that is carbonated.
Oh, okay. I thought they necessarily had to be carbonated. All right.
A soft drink is a drink that usually contains water, a sweetener, and a natural or artificial flavoring. So sounds like
very
lemonade.
Broad definition. Fine. I'm gonna die on this.
Taking L's today, Paris.
I'm gonna die on this fucking wall made of root beer. Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Terrible Book Club.
Terrible Book Club is an independent podcast produced by your hosts, Paris and Chris. Sound design and audio editing by Chris, with sound effects and music by Epidemic Sound and sometimes also Chris. Our theme song is Kiss by Yearn, which is, you guessed it, actually also Chris. You can find more of his soothing synthy sounds on Bandcamp at yearn.bandcamp.com. Do you want us to review a book of your choice on the show? Do you want access to some extra audiovisual weirdness? If so, become a patron at patreon.com/terriblebookclub. If you'd like to send us a one-time tip instead, you can do that at ko-fi.com/terriblebookclub. You can also support TBC for free by sharing the show on social media, following our accounts on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or Goodreads, telling your friends about your favorite episode, or by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or anywhere else on the internet. To send us book recommendations or your adorable pet photos, send an email to terriblebookclub@gmail.com.